have over 720,000 followers.
Wow.
And these are followers who like hearing my stories and followers who say that my stories are comforting, inspiring, and validating. And it's like these people are the antidote to my parents' toxicity. So
Mhm.
I think if I have a message is that it's never too late.
Hi, and welcome to Lead Well. Today's guest is Abel. She is an author, storyteller, and three-time Moth Slam winner, whose memoir, High Hopes, follows a bold journey she took at 60 years old. After leaving a dangerous teaching job, she found herself without the structure that had helped her manage lifelong depression. So she did something radical. She followed Bruce Springsteen's Australian tour. What began as an act of survival became a journey of hope, connection, and unexpected transformation. Anne's story is courageous, honest, and deeply human. I'm excited to explore it with her today. Anne, you're an author, a storyteller, and a three-time Moth Story Slam winner. Now, what is that?
All right. Well, the Moth is an international storytelling organization. For every show, there's a theme, and you come up with a 5-minute story on that theme,
Mm,
and you have to be prepared to tell it without notes. Then you get there and you put your name in a hat, or it's really a bag. You have no idea how many other people put their names in. And then, in addition, they pull three judges from the audience, and then they pull the first name. And if you get called, you go up, you tell your story, your 5 minutes, and then they get a score from each of the judges. They put it on a sheet. And then one by one, each storyteller pulls the next storyteller. And then at the end of the night, they figure out who's got the highest score. That makes you a Story Slam winner. And eventually they'll get 10 Story Slam winners. And you go to a Grand Slam. And there you're
mhm.
telling the story to 1,000 people.
Mm.
And it's really a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It has to be about yourself
Ah,
and it has to be off book.
okay. Wow, that sounds so interesting. It reminds me of the earlier stages where people would sit around a campfire and tell stories.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's actually not the main story we wanted to talk about today.
No, and actually, one thing that I think I'm also, this is crazy, but at the age of 72, I've become a social media influencer with over 720,000 followers.
Wow.
So at the age of 60, 12 years ago, I suffered with terrible, severe recurrent depression, and I've had 3 regimens of ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. I'd
Wow.
been inpatient twice. And then at the age of 60, I'd been teaching at a community college for 5 years, and it had been what was keeping me going, my inspiration. My kids had grown, my husband traveled. And then the fifth week, one semester that year, I just had the class from hell. They were literally throwing desks at me. I mean, it was just, and one day I just walked out the door and thought, that's it, I'm never coming back. But I had, a year earlier, I had my third regimen of ECT. It had been a disaster. It had to be stopped halfway through because I was losing my memory. As a result, I didn't remember the July wedding of my son and daughter-in-law.
Wow.
Um, and actually, a couple months after that, they had come to visit us in Philadelphia. We lived in Philadelphia then to see a Bruce Springsteen concert. I didn't know, I'd never been to a concert. I was 59. I'd never been to a concert. They
Wow.
came at the last minute, and they came at the last minute. And I'm like, no, I don't. Why would I want to go? I just want to get into bed at 7 o'clock. And then a few hours before the show, I decided I would push myself up off the couch and go because I wanted to spend time with them.
Mm.
They're telling me wedding stories, showing me pictures before the concert. And one picture, they're flanked on one side by her parents, the other side by my husband, Andy, and me. And they're beaming. Her parents are smiling, Andy's smiling, my husband, and I'm just staring at the camera, catatonic, vacant. I wasn't there. So we're sitting there right before the concert that I went to only to be with them. And all of a sudden, the crowd mysteriously rose in unison. So there I am looking at myself, this catatonic picture. I felt a jab in my heart. I felt like a tourist in my own life. And
Mm.
suddenly the crowd mysteriously rose in unison, and I rose too. And up on the screen was the face of a man with the biggest, kindest smile I had ever seen. And I
Mm.
just felt my heart opening for this man. You know, his energy filled the stadium, his energy filled me. And I was swaying and clapping and smiling. This man who at 62 is 3 years older than me, but he didn't stop. And if he could keep going like this, so could I. And for three
Wow.
plus hours, Bruce Springsteen's energy, enthusiasm, and humanity lifted in me. And for 3 plus hours, he made me feel like I had a chance. He made me feel alive.
Wow.
After the concert, I just stared down at the empty, dark stage, shaking my head in disbelief that it was possible to feel so good. I mean, this is like nothing I had ever felt before.
Wow.
And I went to a few more concerts that fall, but then a year later, when these desks were being thrown at me, and I walked out the door, and I'm driving home knowing I'm never going back there, but I was panicking that without the structure and focus of the classroom, I'd go back into the abyss. And I just wasn't doing ECT again. I was 60. I knew myself better than any mental health. And then I knew I needed a lifeline and I needed it fast. And then I remembered how hopeful and alive I felt at Springsteen concerts and that he was touring in Australia in February. And I'll tell you, I hate to travel. I hate to be alone. And remember, I hadn't known who this guy was a year earlier, but I went home, didn't even say hello to my dogs, didn't take off my coat. I Googled Australia travel agents, wrote to five. One of them called me the next morning, and within a week, the trip was booked. 8 concerts, 5 cities over 26 days. And
Wow.
I was terrified. As soon as the trip was planned and paid for, the voice in my head said, "Anne, you are so pathetic. You have nothing better to do than chase an aging rock star." And I was terrified. If I could have just disappeared from this world in a wisp of smoke and not left anyone sad behind me, I would have rather done that than do this crazy thing. But I
Mm.
needed this. But I'm very disciplined and I don't, the voice kept telling me I was pathetic. I just ignored it. And I didn't go on this trip to change. I went for structure and focus, but I came home a different person. For the first, it wasn't easy. I mean, there were lots of difficult things and there was lots of good things, but that's what my memoir, High Hopes, that came out a few months ago was about. But when I came home, for the first time in my life, I had a positive ball of energy and a story about me that I was proud of, a story about me that I wanted to tell. And I suffer with terrible writer's block, and I didn't know how to tell the story. And then shortly after I returned to Philadelphia. I moved to Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and with my husband for work. It was supposed to be 4 months, but I liked it there so much I stayed 2 years.
Oh.
But the first day there, our dog walker said she hosted one of the city's many storytelling open mics and that she also told stories at the Moth. I had never heard of either one
Mm.
of these things,
Oh.
but I knew I had this story I wanted to tell. I'd never stood in front of a mic or on a stage, but I forced myself to go to the open mics. And then a friend insisted I go to the Moth later. And I
Mm.
went. We got there. He insisted I put my name in to tell a story. And I was terrified. And I was called as the last storyteller that night. And I told a 5-minute story about going to Australia, and I won. And
Mm.
until the days each of them died, my parents had told me not to talk to them because I had nothing interesting to say.
Wow.
But now, finally, audiences were telling me something different, and they inspired me to fight through writer's block. And that I wrote High Hopes, that came out a few months ago, and this other book, Maddie, Milo, and Me, that came out last year. And the transformation that began with this trip and
Mm.
the moving and the storytelling, and then I moved to New York. I just didn't want to. The people and my friends, when I came back from the trip, they all just wanted to see me as this depressed person. They didn't
Ah.
want to see this.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to hear my stories. They just,
Mm-hmm.
my best friend said to me, "I didn't think you'd go. And then when you went, I thought you would just come home. You wouldn't be able to do it." And I just looked
Mm-hmm.
at her and I thought, "You don't know me. I committed myself to doing ECT. Those are terrifying things, but I will do anything if I think it might help me."
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, so I left and we went to Chicago and I found this whole community of storytelling people. And then my husband works at the University of Pennsylvania, and I didn't want to move to Chicago. It was too cold. We're too old. We didn't know anyone there. So I said, let's move to New York. And he commutes to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved here, I wanted to win one story slam Moth in New York, and I did. And that was telling the story about this rescue dog, which turned into the book. And then and then when my first book came out, Maddie, Milo, and Me last year, the publisher said I should go on social media to promote it. And to me, someone had put me on Facebook 15 years ago. That's all I knew. It seemed daunting, but that afternoon, I asked another dog walker, this one in New York City, if she knew anyone who did social media. So she gave me the name of this 19-year-old computer science major here at the City University of New York. His name's Arseni, who did social media for her. And as I say, I now call Arseni Maestro or Steven Spielberg because in the last year we've had 26 viral videos. I have over 720,000 followers,
Wow.
and these are followers who like hearing my stories and followers who say that my stories are comforting, inspiring, and validating. And it's like these people are the antidote to my parents' toxicity. So
Mhm.
I think if I have a message is that it's never too late. Do not give up. I still suffer with depression, but it's not, my parents died 5 years ago. That helped, but just keep trying, like just find something to connect with,
Mm.
just take that first step toward a connection and just keep trying.
Yeah, and I also hear you say disconnect from the people that
Oh,
don't do you good.
yes, because that it's just, and there's a thread of that in the book because one of my children was just kept pushing me closer, with his new wife, and you have to just make choices.
Mm.
And so do
Yeah.
not, so it's never too late. And I'm 72 and I'm not.
Mm. Mm. And that's good to know because I'm 59, turning 60 in January. So maybe it's time to take a leap.
Go to a concert, right?
Go to the concert. Yeah.
I remember when I was in my 40s, someone in her 60s said to me, "You should never think that the age you are is old, because in
Mm.
a year you'll look back on that age and it will seem young." So I try
Yeah.
to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, let's take about this because you say you still live with depression, but it feels like you can manage it really well now. So, what is it that you
Better,
would like
better.
others to know about it, to know
Well,
about this state you're in? What is it that you're feeling if you want to go there, of course?
everybody, there's different degrees and everybody's different, but
Mm.
for years, for decades, until I was 59 or 60, it would just be so hard to put one step in front. I just felt like such a loser. I had no energy. Now, the only thing that ever helped me, and it still is my thing I go to, is working out.
Mhm.
I would just get myself on a bike or an elliptical or whatever the thing of the day was, and I would put on golden oldies because that's what my husband liked, and I would just eke out, I would just make, I'm very disciplined. I'm very disciplined, and I would just do it. And sometimes it would help for 10 minutes, sometimes for 3 hours, but it was something. It was something. Now I am so much better now, but I will tell you, I still wake up in the morning with this thud, and I just feel like a loser. It's just hard to completely rewire, what I had been told by my parents. It's just, young children are really impressionable.
Mhm.
But what I do is I shut off my brain. I love reading newspapers in the morning. I read the papers, and then I'm 72. Whenever I'm not rehabbing from a back surgery or something, I go and work out. And if my husband's home, I'll say, "Oh, I feel so bad." I'll say, "This is the worst part of your day." And just it's so crazy, but it always helps me. But I get over to my elliptical and I think there's no way I'm going to feel better. And then I say to him, I mean, I have this conversation every day.
Uh-huh.
Just view this as an experiment.
Mhm.
Just get on. You don't feel good now. You feel horrible. Just get on. Just see if you feel better afterwards.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you, I mean, it's hard. I do it for 45 minutes. In the first 15 seconds, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But then I say to myself, just think about minute 45. Don't
Mhm.
worry about, just take it 1 minute. Do not worry about 10 minutes from now. And I just, each minute is just one more minute I did. And
Mm,
I literally count down just over, and now you're on 44, now you're on 43.
mm,
And now that I'm doing better, after I do that, I feel like I'm pretty much on a level playing field and the energy lasts me for the most of the day. But it wasn't like that. That's why I went to a hospital twice,
mm,
twice. It just got to the point where I couldn't even work out. I mean, I was
mm,
sitting in my husband's study at home, and then he had to go to work and he couldn't leave me. It was
mm,
just, I wouldn't take phone calls. You just become like you curl into a ball kind of,
mm.
and there's no hope.
And but in Australia, this was different, I guess. So what was
Well,
the feeling
oh,
there?
well, here, that's great. The power of music. I'm not the first one to have
Mm,
experienced the power of music. And for me, Bruce Springsteen creates magic on stage. And there were lots of things there were lots of things. First of all, at home, people rolled their eyes that I was chasing this aging rock star at home across the
mm,
world. They didn't appreciate that I was fighting for my life.
mm,
And I was embarrassed. And I got on the plane to go to Australia, and the flight attendant said, "Oh, why are you coming?" And I winced. I was embarrassed to tell her, "I'm
mm,
60 years old. I'm all alone and I'm chasing this guy across
mm,
the world. What are you going to think about me?" So I told
mm,
her, and her eyes lit up, and she said, "Wow, you're courageous." And later during the flight, a colleague came over. And so this happened a lot in Australia. They would ask me, and then
mm,
many people called me courageous. Young people told me they couldn't get their mothers off the couch to go to a movie or volunteer at a church bazaar, things they had done before they retired. So each time someone there said something positive about me, as disbelieving as I was, I stepped outside myself and tried to see this person that they were seeing. So that was one thing that
mm,
started to give me a slightly new, even if I didn't feel it, it's hard to change your feeling, but even if I didn't feel like that person, it made me open my eyes and think about it.
mhm,
And then at the concerts, like one night, watching Bruce Springsteen sing Dream Baby Dream, I realized I'd never even thought about dreaming. I was so busy trying to do what I was told to do and hoping for my parents' acceptance.
mhm,
But that night I floated out of the arena feeling like I could dream. And of course, it didn't happen right away. But I believe that once you feel something, it's easier to recreate it. And then another night he went back and forth across the stage saying over and over, "How do you get through the day and stay alive inside?"
mm,
And hearing him say this, I thought, if Bruce Springsteen can say this to an arena full of fans, I must not be the only one feeling like this. It's okay to struggle and to try again. So it was validating. And he is fun. I mean, the boss, I had never done the three-letter F word fun until I went to one of his concerts. And one night I remember, first I didn't know the lyrics. I learned them as we were going along. But one night I heard him, he said, "It's all right to have a good time." And when
mhm,
I heard that, I thought, yes, it's okay for me to have fun finally after 60 years. So, the combination of, and I was alone, I got 26 days is a long time to be alone. I talked to a few people at concerts, but they mostly wanted to talk to their friends. And,
mm,
you know, I, and there were times like I just felt myself sort of sliding down or not.
mm,
But I learned I had no one to depend, no one but me. So I
mhm,
learned to kind of take control of myself. And if I felt horrible, to just sit there and let the feeling be there. And
mhm,
then it would pass. I mean, what are you going to do? And so I think I built up a certain resilience or strength just by learning to cope on my own for that long.
mm. Wow. Wow. Now you have so many so important and interesting stories to tell. What is it that you would like other people to learn from your experience and your journey?
Actually, when I went to the transformation that began when I went to that first concert,
Mhm.
I could never have foreseen it that night. And I realized that there's actually four guiding principles that help me in that transformation. And one is connection, one is perseverance, the third one is openness, and the fourth one is hope. And I believe that the most powerful thing any of us can do even when we can't see the path to transformation, is to take a first step toward a connection to someone, to something.
Mm.
In my case, it was like Bruce Springsteen, it was something to just, and to take a first step toward a connection to someone or something, and then persevere with openness and hope.
Mm.
For example, when I went to that first concert and I just went to be with my kids, if once the crazy music and noise started, if I'd gone, oh my God,
Mm.
now I have to sit here for 4 hours and covered my ears and just counted. But I wasn't. I was somehow, oh, I took in. And when I went on that trip, I was open to what people said to me. I was open to I took in what was going around me. One night, one night I was feeling really bad. I thought, I don't want to go to a Bruce, I don't feel like going to a concert. So I went down to tell, I had a driver who was going to take me, but I'm always planning ahead. I brought my ticket and my credit card. I went down and I said, I wasn't going to go. And then I got in the car and I said to him, I think I'm going to leave the concert early. He said, well, that's no problem, but I've never heard of anyone leaving a Springsteen concert early. And then it was a 15-minute drive, and we thought I was an introvert. Then it turns out I'm an extrovert. We found out when I came home, I took a Myers-Briggs test. But anyhow, he and I started talking, and his family was in the music industry. And by the time we got, just talking to him,
Mm.
and by the time we got to the concert, I said, you know what? I think I'm going to stay for the whole concert. But, just getting out there, just pushing. I could
Mm.
have just stayed in my room and just said, I feel horrible. I don't want to go. But
Mm.
just persevere, like when that voice in my head before I went said, you're pathetic, you're pathetic. I didn't let it shut me. Yeah, I heard it and I didn't like it, but I didn't let it stop me. Like
Mm.
I pushed through that.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
so I think those things are important.
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much, Anne, for sharing your
Okay.
wonderful story.
It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thanks so much. Thanks for all you do, for
Okay, thank you.
inspiring us.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
This was Lead Well. Now, what is the one thing that you're taking away from this episode? Please share in the comments below and do share the podcast with your friends and family, but only if you like it.